God of mercy, even in our worst moments, your loving kindness surrounds us. In those tragic days 19 years ago, our confident faith that you were with us enabled us to go on. We give you thanks for the ways in which you comforted us in those grim days through a deepened sense of community. We trace the movement of your grace through those among us who have risked their lives to save others. We are comforted by those who offered kindness to persons in distress, and by those who would not let hatred overcome love. For those whose witness to a deeper wisdom and faith comforted us, we give you thanks. As we pray in remembrance of that tragic day, help us to also be hope to people who embrace a belief that a new vision is possible, a new vision of peace and equality in our country. For this we pray, Amen.
Thank you, Katie. Please be seated. Before the start of our annual ceremony, I would like to take a moment to reflect on the present. Today is September 11th, and we're all here to remember the events that took place on that day. However, as you look back at various activities throughout the day, you may have noticed how the coronavirus pandemic has changed the scope of how we are able to mourn the loss of lives and honor the heroes of September 11th, 2001. We look around and see social distancing, the wearing of masks, and many things virtual. I am honored to be standing in front of you today as one of the speakers representing our lodge as we perform the ceremony for our community. As reporter Nora O'Donnell stated in May, the U.S. hit a grim milestone this week. 100,000 people have died from coronavirus since the start of the pandemic. Each of those deaths deserves to be remembered, not as victims of COVID-19, but as people who were loved and cherished. As these numbers continue to rise and fall, it has taken its toll on all of us. I'd like us to take a moment to remember our family members, friends, neighbors, or co-workers who were taken from us over the past few months, and to give a silent prayer of thanks to the many heroes who are still protecting and providing services to us. May the lives remembered, the deeds recognized, and the spirit reawakened be eternal beacons, which reaffirm respect for life, strengthen our resolve to preserve freedom, and inspire an end of hatred, ignorance, and intolerance. These words are part of the mission statement of the National September 11 Memorial and Museum at the World Trade Center in New York City. As we know, freedom is the cornerstone of the American way of life, and on September 11, 2001, our lives were forever changed. Today we acknowledge the 19th year anniversary of the day we witnessed the purposeful, large-scale destruction of innocent and defensive lives on American soil. Just as December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor Day, defined a generation, September 11 helped shape who we are and what we believe in. It reminded us how fragile our freedom can be. But the day holds countless stories of survival, courage, and heroism, which also revealed the strength of freedom. We pay tribute by honoring those who lost their freedom on 9/11 and those brave warriors who have made the ultimate sacrifice by defending our freedom since that date. Thousands lost their lives when 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center, another into the Pentagon, and a 4th plane heading towards Washington, D.C., which fell in a Pennsylvania field. When the towers fell, 749 New Jersey residents, 3 from Piscataway, lost their lives. We felt shock, disbelief, and anguish. And as a country, we mourned and searched for answers. But more importantly, we gathered the strength to move forward. On December 18, 2001, President George W. Bush signed Joint Resolution 71, presented by the U.S. House of Representatives, designating September 11th of each year as Patriot Day. On this day, the President directs that the American flag be flown at half-staff for a moment of silence beginning at 8:46 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, commemorating the time the first plane crashed on September 11th, 2001. This evening, we gather to remember the people we lost on that day. We have all seen or heard the phrase, "America will never forget." And 19 years later, Piscataway Elks, number 2414, has gathered again to hold true to that claim. At this time, I would like to introduce Marie Kleeman, Americanism Chair, and our member who created this remembrance ceremony.
As we and the rest of our country mark the 19th anniversary of this event, many of you have already revisited the emotions you felt in the moments that followed the terrorist attacks. On that clear, sky blue morning of 9/11, our focus began as we watched with horror the tragedy unfolding on our television screens as the Twin Towers were engulfed in flames and slowly collapsed. As we understood the enormity of what we were witnessing, think about the courage of our policemen and firefighters who rushed into two burning towers to get thousands to safety. Little did we know that only a short time later, more tragedy would befall us as a plane crashed into a section of the Pentagon, and more lives were senselessly lost. I would like to read a short poem entitled "Why" from an unknown author, while member and firefighter Rich Racine and Mayor Brian Waller and members of the River Road Fire Company light a candle remembering those who lost their lives at the Twin Towers and at the Pentagon. This poem has also been inscribed onto the tablet behind us as part of our monument. Why? Grief and sorrow struck this nation in an unexplainable way, leaving us surrounded by tears and sorrow, and only one thing left to say. Why? Why did this have to happen? What did we do so wrong? Why did you have to take our loved ones? How do we replace those who are gone? But we will not go quietly. We will stand up and fight. United we stand together for what is true, what is right. Heroes rose out of the ashes to save a life we thought was lost, never thinking what might happen, never caring what the cost. They didn't do it for the glory. They didn't do it for the fame. They only did what they knew was right. They are our heroes who have no names. United we can build a better tomorrow. Let us finish what they began to start. Let us say a prayer for them together and keep them close in our heart.
Thank you, Marie. I would like to introduce Lodge Officer Jamie Gill and Member Joe Wojciech.
As we all know, the next planned attack of a flight originally scheduled to land in San Francisco was hijacked in midair and was headed towards our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Getting information via cell phones and with the realization of terrorist plan underway, 40 courageous passengers and crew of Flight 93 took matters into their own hands. As they stormed the cabin of the plane to save lives of perhaps hundreds of innocent people as their plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We have since come to recognize Tom Beamer's phrase, "Let's roll." While I read a poem entitled "Let's Roll," Jack Harkins, past president, will light a candle in their memory. Let's roll. They were on a flight going from here to there, just another day, each one without a care. Then they got the news about the WTC, and then they realized that next one is we. Some of them were moved forward, the rest moved to the rear, and it's hard to imagine the helplessness and fear. But they must have gotten to talking and figured out their plight, that in the list of bombers, they were the next flight. Wonder what they went through in their minds and how much they were scared. But when they thought the USA realized how much they cared. We think about our heroes and those on the front line. Then they all hear, let's roll. They knew at that time to step up and sacrifice whatever it may take, and made the call most of us hope never have to make. They went down in victory, the first against the terrorists, showed the will of Americans is strong and still exists. They stood up for America, knew what they had to do, and let's not ever forget, they did it for me and you. Nobody will ever know what went on in that plane. We just know that it added to the misery and the pain. We all had enough on that September day, but they gave us more to pray for the same way. And another bunch of lost souls we lost on 9/11, but they aren't truly lost, for they found their niche in heaven.
In an effort to tie the three events of September 11th together, the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and United's Flight 93, a 2-ton, 14-foot-high cross made out of steel from the World Trade Center was transported on Saturday, August 23, 2008, from New York to the Shanksville, Pennsylvania Fire Department as part of a monument in front of the firehouse to honor those who gave their lives on United 93. As hundreds of firefighters, policemen, and citizens throughout New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania proudly waved our country's flag and bowed their heads in prayer, the steel cross made a 311-mile journey, accompanied by hundreds of motorcyclists, many of them current or retired New York City firefighters. On September 10th, 2011, the first part of the Flight 93 National Memorial, which is located at the site of the crash in Shanksville, was dedicated, and on September 10th, 2015, the Visitor Center was opened. And as visitors to this site gather, the Tower of Voices, a 93-foot tall musical instrument made of steel and concrete, holding 40 wind chimes, one dedicated to each of the 40 heroes that took back the plane after it was hijacked during the terrorist attacks, will peal forth. What was a common field one day is now a field of honor forever. In New York City in 2011, at the site of the World Trade Center, the National September 11th Memorial opened. The memorial's twin reflecting pools are each nearly an acre in size and feature the largest man-made waterfalls in North America. The pools sit within the footprints where the Twin Towers once stood. The names of every person who died in the 2011 attacks are inscribed into bronze panels edging the memorial pools, a powerful reminder of the largest loss of life resulting from a foreign attack on American soil. In 2014, the Memorial Museum opened at the site.
Thank you, Jamie and Joe. In 2006, Bob Martineau created a replica of the Twin Towers from the trunk of a fallen tree in front of our lodge. Sadly, weather took its toll on our monument and those towers succumbed to nature. Noting this, Corey Pine, a member of the Boy Scout Troop 67, inquired about a project to be completed at our lodge in order to earn his Eagle Scout badge. Noting the new foundation for the towers provided by lodge member Frank Contessa, with Corey's insightful planning and help from his fellow Troop 67 members, family, and friends, you now see before you a truly impressive 9/11 Memorial Garden. All these monuments stand to remind us and future generations of the events of September 11, 2001, and to honor the mothers and fathers, the sons and daughters, the neighbors and friends who lost their lives on that fateful day. Our fallen heroes' lives were not in vain. We will remember the hundreds of uniformed personnel and civilians who sacrificed their lives by running into the towers, the heroes who remained in the towers to help others escape, the brave passengers and crew of United Flight 93, and we will remember the 184 unsuspecting victims of the Pentagon. I would also like to take time to remember the survivors of 9/11. They are special people who have gone through pain and suffering, difficult losses, and life-altering experiences. We cannot begin to comprehend the emotions they have endured. We have the utmost respect for them, and they will remain in our thoughts and prayers. Since the horrific events that unfolded on that fateful day, tens of thousands of U.S. troops have been injured or have given the ultimate sacrifice on the war against terrorism in the continued fight for our freedom. 3 of our lodge veterans, Bill Kleeman, Harry Newton, Dan Bernstein, will join member Ursilia Reardon, New Jersey Army National Guard, active duty reservist who recently returned from Kosovo, to light the final candle in their honor or memory. Thank you. I would like to ask everyone to remain seated for a musical interlude as we take a moment to reflect and remember all those we lost. During this time, please feel free to come up and light a candle in memory or in honor of your loved one. We have lit the candles of remembrance and reflected upon the emotions of this day. At this time, I would like to thank Luke, Ben, and David from Boy Scout Troop 67 and the River Road Fire Company for once again participating in this evening's ceremony. and past President Jack Harkins for providing our musical interludes. I now have the pleasure to introduce Mayor Brian Waller.
Thank you, Exalted Ruler Chapman. Before I say a few words, I would like to acknowledge some of the other elected officials that are here this evening, starting with our Middlesex County Sheriff, Millie Scott, who's in the back. We also have Council President Gabrielle Cahill. We have Council Vice President Kapil Shaw, at-large Councilwoman Chanel McCullum. We have Ward 1 Councilman Frank Earn and Ward 4 Councilwoman Michelle Lombardi. We also have Board of Education President Sheila Hobson in the back, and then we also have Board of Education member Kim Lane that are here this evening. I want to thank the Elks community here at the Piscataway Lodge, and also other Elks Lodge members from around the state that are here, the River Road Fire Company and Piscataway Boy Scout Troop 67 for being here today. It's an honor for me to be down here to represent the town and the town council at this remembrance ceremony that is sponsored by the Piscataway Elks. You do a great job every year of operating it, and thank you, Marie, for the good weather tonight for this remembrance for that. So I'm going to give you credit for that. So on behalf of the Township Council and myself, I want to thank all of you for being here. Today we remember a tragic day, a tragic experience. We remember the many lives lost. We remember many more lives forever altered. We remember the devastation, the uncertainty, and the fear of September 11th. As we gather here in our collective grief and shared respect, we must also remember the unity of the days and weeks that followed. For most, but not all, Americans appreciated their neighbors. Communities became families. Generosity became our standard. In Piscataway, we maintained that unity, that generosity, because we remembered. Sadly, though, fellow citizens in other parts of our country have forgotten. That spirit of American unity, now so sorely needed, must be renewed. As we face critical challenges in our nation, let our civility and our compassion hold forth. Even with a mask on, we can look into our neighbor's eyes and see a fellow American. They can be a longtime neighbors, they can be new neighbors, they can be our fellow Americans. Let our country renew its shared sense of responsibility and get through these challenges together. Let us look to selfishness of our first responders as inspiration. Let us take our memories, our sense of obligation to one another, our honor, the sacrifices of those no longer here and those still suffering. And once again, I cannot thank, on behalf of the township residents and the township governing body, to the members of the Piscataway Elks Lodge for sponsoring this event every year. You do a great job at doing that, and we appreciate you being the host of this particular township event. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Vice President of the Central District, Jeffrey Van Wart.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here tonight. It's certainly a different world today than it was when these towers were attacked. The children are now adults, and this year, the kids voting this year will be the first time we'll have a set of people voting that weren't even born yet when these towers were hit. So it makes it even more important that we remember and have them never forget, just like us. So thank you for having me today.
I'd like to introduce now Central District State Trustee Patrick McDonald.
Thank you for inviting me here today, Maureen. I actually was working in New York on 2001, September 11th. I worked for the post office, and every year brings back the memories of the two towers falling. I seen both of them fall. I couldn't get back to New Jersey. All the transportation was shut down. So myself and a co-worker, we walked up 220. We walked up to 225th Street in the Bronx. It took us 9 hours to walk up there, and there was no transportation. And the next day, when I got up there, I finally called my wife. None of the phones were working at that time, the street phones, and I was a little in shock. For 2 days, I couldn't go back to work, and I finally retired in 2004 from the post office, but every year 9/11 brings back a lot of the memories, and so I just don't want to forget those people that died in vain. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our Patriot Day Remembrance Ceremony. God bless America, and God bless our troops. And please remember to exercise caution and remain safe. Thank you all for coming, and please join us in our backyard for some light refreshments.